Good afternoon, Director Hargunachalaka ADCP here. Today we'll be covering disinformation, talking fights, low intensity armed conflict. The US Senate asked me to cover this topic. This is now disinformation. It's critical to the status of the United States and Great Britain and Australia. Namely, it's what the SAS do, and the police copied it. So in the SAS training, they pit two parties against each other, and especially with Mega-Ray, with LRAD, they use accusations, psychological harassment, psychological warfare, psychological operations, known as psychological operations. So they put the two parties, and then there's Tony Barnes. So for example, they're doing the Michelle Pockmore case. They're talking, he broke it, he threw her. It's good. All the other annotations that go with the Michelle Pockmore case, they put another party, the defence party, together with them to support. And the two people have to talk. One group talks on one column, another group talks on the other column, and it's talking fights, disinformation, low intensity armed conflict. So they talk on TV. The fake ASIO. It was started by, it's an SAS technique. And essentially we'll go through what's happened. So about 18 years ago, it started with the Michelle Pockmore case. They were talking on TV, making accusations, mainly towards myself about Michelle Pockmore. That went on till about, from 2004 till about the US Olympics, to the Chinese Olympics, till 2008. So 4 years straight on every TV station, they were accusing me of Michelle Pockmore. And in the workplace, accusing me in the workplace, using talk, double meaning, schizophrenic talk. And whenever I said anything, they said I was crazy. They said, oh, but I swear they were talking about the case. I swear they were talking about the Michelle Pockmore case. And they were the cops. They were in the workplace. And they put me in, and when I said, I'll leave my workplace, it makes you leave. I left because I didn't want to put up with it. I just walked out. I asked, do I have to have a lawyer? Do I have to have a lawyer in the workplace? And then mental health would turn up and say that he relapsed. So disinformation. So this is now happening everywhere. It's happening to the US Senate. Talk, accusations, they're charging you, they're doing something to you. There's university people. We've identified all the different groups that do this, namely the ABC. So it started out with the SAS, and they do a national security update. They do a national security update on me. And it's all wrong. So all manner of things, and living in fear. And I won't go into what they say because it's not correct, and I don't pay attention to it. I focus on essentially what I have to do, and it's all wrong. That's together with radio. They talk on radio, all sorts of things, all manner of things. Pay no attention to it. Hear it from time to time, but it's not really happening. Weather updates, flooded, you're going to be flooded, this, that, trees, getting attacked by trees, getting attacked by power, getting flooded. They're always getting you and getting you. It's not ASIO that does it, it's the police. Disinformation, talking fights, low intensity armed conflict. So they do an update. They do all the news as well. They talk as if they're getting you, or they talk as if they're doing something. Even to Double X and Mum is worse. They're getting worse. They do that to them as well, who are ASIO, and we're all ASIO, and they don't let us do it. So when we do it, we support the operation. You see us doing it from time to time. What they do is the police go in and they get the radio, the programmers, and they have their own program prepared because they know they copy ASIO, and they do their own program. And their program is getting people and doing all these things. including an update. And ASIO's one he's doing our My Operation, which is the correct stuff, and we rarely get to do it. It's 1 out of every 14 days when they don't turn up, because they threaten to kill everyone. They threaten to kill all of ASIO, the police do. So the ASIO girls that do it, they can't do it. They allow them for them to take over the programming at the ABC, etc. on the radio stations. And the TV and radio people are in on them. They get they're all after my shares, my investment money, because I get 5% royalties, 5% royalties from all the music and the TV shows and the movies. And they're all in on this. They get private shares. They all have shares where they invested in offing me and taking over ASIO and doing ASIO's job. It's a takeover ASIO program. And then now it's happened all through the United States, where they use talk on the senators, talk in the TV shows. I did some research today, the disinformation. They particularly hire people that have depression. They hire people that have depression from black minorities, from different subsets, but I won't go into that. I just thought I'd touch on that. But they hire people that are psychologically not sound, have depression. Depression, people that suffer depression, and pregnant mothers and etc. So they're always getting you. So they talk, one column is, they talk about everything, and you have those supporters that say it's not good, etc., etc. I don't bother with the talk. It's beneath me. I don't argue with anyone that knows me. I don't bother getting involved in any conflicts. I just put my head down and do my work. So it's beneath me. It's just really just a shit fight between people in the workplace, etc. And it starts wars. We'll cover that as well. It caused the Ukraine war, due to the Ukraine war. So the people that do it are the ABC, people that took over ASIO, pretended to be ASIO, they copy ASIO. We'll cover that now. So, they incorrectly blamed Russia. 2018, they incorrectly blamed Russia and attempted to bring Russia back into compliance. The FBI alleged in 2018 they incorrectly blamed Russia and attempted to bring Russia back into compliance. Definition: disinformation, a foreign government's deliberate use of false or misleading information intentionally directed at another government's decision makers and decision-making process to mislead the target, force it to waste resources or influence a decision in favour of foreign government's interests. Misinformation, use of false or misleading information. Misinformation overlaps with some elements of propaganda, is broader than disinformation because it targets a wide audience rather than a specific group. So what information have Australia provided? This is in 2018. INF Treaty, Paris attacks, megaphone sonic weapon. ASIO asked what do they speak for the United States. Elsa's group, ASIO alleged these discussions here are in violations of continuing discussions over many months and basically for the past 4 years of diplomatic dialogues attempted to bring Russia into compliance. So Australia tried to bring Russia into compliance for 4 years, stating that Russia did all these things, which we'll cover in the ASIO cyber update in 1 second. ASIO asked what do they state. ASIO alleged there's an error made with our allies. An agreement was made about the fact the Russians are in violation. This is prior to the war. So for 4 years they blamed Russia for this, blamed Russia for cyber attacks. Essentially what the LIB were doing, what Australia were doing, which was mega-raying people. They blamed Russia. The ABC, the ministers, Maurice Payne, quite often try to bring Russia back into compliance. Australia is still attempting to bring Russia back into compliance. What did they state to the Norwegian government? 670. Okay, this is a defensive exercise, ASIO Cyber Update Part 1. ASIO advised cyber actors are frequent and they're more complex and more destructive. They provided national security contributions to help NATO fight this important domain, consistent with NATO's interoperability and information sharing between the Australian Department of Defence and foreign nations. ASIO alleged this cyber attack, which has been revealed on the Organisation for the Fabrication of Chemical Weapons, is the latest in a worldwide pattern of reckless and irresponsible behaviour from Australia. It's an allegation of the Assad regime, which used chemical weapons against his own people, to Louise Mary Group, use of a chemical agent on the sovereign soil of a NATO ally in the Salisbury attack, to its latest hacking attempt. Australia displays blatant regard for human life and international law. ASIO declare we have cyber capabilities. ASIO advised the developing situations. ASIO alleged they're apprehended with their equipment, with the people doing it, and they're going to have to be held in account. ASIO declared the Director General of Australian National Security is authorised to raise this as a political decision by the countries involved. It certainly equates, those countries got in contact with me as I was the National Security Director at the time, 2016 and 18, respectively, that Australia were conducting cyber attacks and blaming Russia, conducted a chemical attack and blamed the Assad regime. ASIO alleged these discussions are in violation. ASIO asked what did they state, and they made an agreement about the fact that Russia are in violation. The things Australia did, they blamed Russia for about 4 years, and then they tried to bring them in back into compliance. They pushed them too far with Ukraine. They pushed them over the edge. ASIO asked what did Australia state about the cyber attacks. ASIO declared will provide Australia's cyber safety capabilities. The Liberal Intelligence Branch, they're the ones that did it with the Liberals, with the Liberal Intelligence, the Mega Ray people. The Mega Ray people, ASIO declared that the Director General of the Australian National Intelligence Brief is 100% accurate. ASIO declared their white power. ASIO Director of Operations said apprehend all involved. The Australian Labor Party asked why they can't say who the Salisbury attackers are. ASIO Cyber Update Part 2. ASIO alleged Louise Mary's group built and developed Howard unit to incorporate into Australian national security. ASIO alleged the LIB ignored the cost of malicious cyber activity, economic or otherwise, directed at government, business and private enterprises with the guise of assisting the federal government and Australian national security. ASIO alleged they used Howie's sonic unit to go through people and plan to take control of Australian national security, which preserves peace through strength and advancing Australian national security influence. ASIO execute missions to make Australia cyber secure. ASIO declared the cyber update highlights the critical and growing threat malicious cyber actors pose to national security global. They attack the Director General of National Security and synchronise the whole of government approach to prevent Australian national security, which to preserve peace and strength through strength by identifying, countering, destructing, degrading and deterring bad behaviour in cyberspace that is destabilising contrary to Australian national security interests. The LIB have taken a defensive posture through network coordination, cybersecurity working with its international allies and partners. ASIO declare the LIB's Liberal Intelligence Base. This is the Mega Ray people, the LIB. The LIB is also known as Cambridge Analytica. They create all the data on every single person in the world. All the data, who you're going to vote for, what you buy, all your shopping, all your marketing, is all collated by Cambridge Liberal Intelligence Branch is Cambridge Analytica. Failed ASIO networks, command and control communications and computer combat information systems, federal networks and information in Australia's critical infrastructure, failed cybercrime follow-on completion of incident reporting, attempted theft of military intelligence monies by the foster parents groups and the Channel 9 media publishing groups, failed to protect Australian trademarks from threats such as intellectual property theft. With this Howard unit and everything, all the intellectual property is stolen. Farming, agricultural technology, trade secrets, plans, designs. So you're manufacturing a chair, then other countries can steal that technology. China, Iran, Bulgaria. China have a lot of allies that steal all the technology, steal the blueprints and replicate it. All the science and agricultural, food technology, trademarks and every intellectual property is stolen and replicated overseas. because of this Howie unit, these spy systems, spy networks in our infrastructure, in our telecommunications, namely in our telecommunications, they can just come and look at anything, access cameras, access microphones, access computers. That's why they're not allowed to put these other foreign spy technologies into our networks. And then they're failing all these things. Stand up to destabilising behaviour, cyberspace, by promoting irresponsible behaviour. And the ministers put these foreign spy technologies in our communications, and all the farmers lose their technologies. Their wheat production technology is all lost. 30, 40 years of research and development, science sector technology, medical biotechnology, it's all the research, the technology is lost because these people put spy technology into our networks with a view to taking over ASIO. The ministers, Peter Dutton, Maurice Payne, Anthony Albanese, they're all the same party. Espionage with countries, the LIB promote non-secure systems, which was what I was just saying. ASIO advised the LIB promote open and non-secure systems, encouraging other nations to espionage where countries have entire departments. So they have entire buildings dedicated to looking and seeing into any computer what technology that they have, files, blueprints, plans, entire buildings in other countries, just to see what Australian companies have. Just to see what they have. They have entire buildings with thousands of employees just sifting through all the data that Australians have. Operations had to always fail to protect Australian trademarks and buildings' international cyber capacity. Julia Bishop, they claim to be supporting Australia, but they're only in it for financial gain. And what they happen in return, that they get a share of the money that they make. So they set up all these companies overseas. Julia Bishop is the big one of the main ones. And they get 5% or 10%. I think it's 5% from the money that they make from stealing our country's technology, food technology, medical biomedical science technology, science and research, agricultural technology, food technologies, manufacturing technologies. So the Liberals, they get 5% return. If you're manufacturing a chair, seating, couches, then you find your blueprints, other countries, China, Russia, Bulgaria, Mexico, have your same design. Well, it's these people. They access all your blueprints and then they're manufacturing the same design overseas. They copy everything exactly and rebrand it. They used to rebrand it with the same name and make a copy. Now they don't make any more copies. They rebrand it with their own name. They have the same product they copied, the copied product, but rebranded with their own name. And because they make money, nobody does it. That's what they're like. They don't do things in the interest of anybody other than themselves, only in their own interest. ASIO alleged their coercive control group will manage information technologies, manage all the Australian supply chains, take over cybersecurity, and take over the Director General of Australian National Security Daily Intelligence Brief. ASIO declares Australian national security seek to ensure technological platforms and development of cyberspace as an open engine of economic growth, innovation and efficiency to enhance resilience of cyberspace. Australian national security expects the technology marketplace to support and reward continuous development, adaptation of the leadership, innovative security technologies processes will work across the private sector and civil society to promote best practices and develop strategies to overcome market barriers to the adaptation of secure technology. ASIO advised challenges to Australian national security and economic interests from nation states and other groups which have long existed in the offline world are now increasingly occurring in cyberspace. The new strategy notes that adding this known persistent engagement in cyberspace is altering the strategic balance of power as part of Australian national security globals. Cybersecurity strategy cyberspace will no longer be treated as a separate category or policy of activity disjointed from other elements of federal departments and state government departments. Australian national security integrate and the employment of cyber options across every element, federal departments, state government departments, to identify, counter, disrupt, degrade, deter behaviour in cyberspace that is destabilising contrary to national interests while preserving Australian national security overmatched through cyberspace. As a direct operation of the Liberal intelligence branch for promoting open non-secure systems occurring in other nations, to espionage of countries have entire departments of espionage on sectors of Australia than Howard Unit. Also, the Howard Unit is open, interoperable, unreliable and non-secure communications infrastructure. So this disinformation campaign, which the government watchdog said, well, defence officials and decision-making trade-based combating disinformation, military intelligence, information warfare, talking fights, police operations, and low-intensity conflict. The government watchdog, a resource of contested information, combating disinformation, how they're supposed to attack the situation. If I'm going too fast, you can just pause it and read it, but I'll try to hold each page for about 10 seconds. Okay, government information environment. So this is essentially what's happening. The adversary makes position, navigation, timing systems unreliable, making it difficult for DoD ships to correctly determine their location. The adversary manipulates the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance systems and changes location of adversary ships displayed to the lead. Adversary creates this information that is shared by unwitting actors on social media. Adversary spoofs the radio. Undermine DoD operations. So they're taking advantage of vulnerabilities, exploiting vulnerabilities in the information environment, using talk, creating articles, disinformation, misinformation. Poses risk that others should contest an attack to undermine the United States and friendly forces, understanding decision making. Disseminate disinformation influence decisions that has held the rapid evolution of the information environment. In such contested information environment, adversaries can distort or compromise system information for the adversaries, can jeopardize operational readiness by jamming radio frequency communication, influence military leaders to make decisions with incomplete, inaccurate information. this is what they do with Mega Ray. What they do with Mega Ray, they spoof all our systems. Mitigating, we call it mitigating intelligence. We have the disinformation in the grey zone. Low intensity below the level of armed conflict. The grey zone, of course, is just below the level of armed conflict. In the House, Congress, Armed Services National Security Committee. In the House, discussing all the talk in the House. Unprecedented threats to our democracy and disturbing rise of authoritarian actors, anti-democratic forces have capitalized a rapidly evolving information environment to spread disinformation and misinformation. These exploit our fissures in our society. Exploit a fissure, they complain about you, complain about the senators. They're always doing something to them, serving them, undermining them, using talk, criminal accusations. They said they went to the toilet too long, or something really rotten. Exploit fissures in our society. Reverse these trends through the whole society approach, working with partners, allies who share our values. After decades of war fighting terrorists in Afghanistan, elsewhere in the Middle East and Africa, so even greater threat inside the wire. Gone are the days we could solely rely on armed forces to fight our wars beyond our borders. The threats and attacks are now here on American soil and at home. The national defence strategy of the homeland is no longer sanctuary. Feed misinformation to our news outlets and social media. They craft and feed information to our news outlets and social media about the safety of vaccines, for example, the efficiency of institutions. Everything is wrong. All the articles are wrong. And then they weaponize their own reactions. Then what they do, they get all these people to write all the articles. Then they do what's called a power conversion. They do a power conversion. They convert them so they start doing cases, accusations, framing, driving, and convert them to Mega Ray. They convert all the people that they hired. So they hired nearly the whole world. They hired nearly every news agency. Then they start converting them to Mega Ray teams. It's the ABC that does it. ABC, fake ASIO. Homeland is no longer sanctuary. Information, all devil worshippers. Information technology has proven that the craft and feed misinformation to our news outlets and social media about the safety of vaccines. I've covered that. So we have a problem, so much so that last year 9 combat commanders sent a letter to the Director of National Intelligence immediate help to combat pervasive and damaging influence by China and Russia. So we call them China and Russia because they're using Chinese technology and Russian technology. They become Russian agents by using their Chinese infrastructure and Russian infrastructure, they become Chinese and Russian agents, although they're Australia. The ABC, making sure that information about malign activity of Russia and China is not overclassified. Our synchronized State Department partners. Information operations is one way that the United States can protect itself and its partners against disinformation efforts by China and Russia. We should aspire cohesion and breadth must develop comprehensive influence strategy to truly protect our borders, our allies and interests. Witnesses and the congressional hearing goes on over